uphakathi ungakahambi nakakhona umngcwabo. Sendendoda esiphethe ithawula ijulukile lokhu ishaka etafuleni awuphume phela umngcwabo kade silindile. Yabona isiphethe xa kujaweni izojaha uzofundisa ngabasashumela nakahle ukuthi makufika umaphuthuleni iqedwa kuyi besizohlala phansi ifuna ukudla inyama ifune bonke utshwala kodwa isijaha isiphuthumisa sonke la. So Kodis ngoba we are all here and I can guarantee that we will all get accommodation. Because we started late, let us do justice and concentrate. I know some of you may be exhausted. No, I know I was speaking to my messenger, Kosan, in the morning, that he drove until his foot was so tired to pedals. I know that because it can cause you to be uncomfortable. But let us agree, colleagues, we will sit here. I want justice to be done. We've spent $1 million, more than $1 million for this program. So we must do justice. Whether through funding, whatever, but we want to achieve what we had planned to achieve. Because we're going to be staying in the hotel that is paid for by the state. Let us be prepared just to spend more time. My purpose is to do a welcoming and opening address, but as I do so, there are certain objectives that we want to achieve. And starting from my presentation and other presentations, from my presentations, at the time we finish, I would be happy if you can tell us what are the priorities of government during the current term of administration. The government that is current started in 2019. That is the 6th administration. It ends in May 2024. At least if by the end of the presentation you know what does government seek to achieve. So the priorities of our government. We'll use terms like medium-term strategic framework, MTSF. At the end of my presentation, you'll have a clear understanding of what we mean when we talk of the MTSF. But Mrs. Longane said, you realize when you are called for an interview that you need to have known those things. Siyasibona ke sebeshwabhesha nabayise kuhlangana nje. Yabona ungasazi no MTF no MTF no MTSF yabona sekuhlangana khona la. So I want you to at least have a grasp of what we mean when we talk of the medium-term strategic framework, MTSF. I want you at the time I end for you to know what is it that the Department of Basic Education that employs you has set to achieve over these 5 years. What do we mean when we talk of the 6th administration? When we saw 6th, we mean there's been 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, to reach to 6. So I want you to understand that. And I also want you to understand what are the values and principles that are enshrined in the Constitution, Section 195, that as a public servant you need to abide by and understand when you perform your duties. That is the objective that I want to achieve as I do this project. It's my pleasure, colleagues, to welcome you to this induction seminar, which to most of you takes place after you have long been in service as level 7 and 8. I know there are some that have recently been appointed, but there are those that are long in the service. Some, they are almost 10 years or more, but you still say you are being inducted. The term induction means being introduced to the environment. Mrs. Johannes said, you may not be introduced to education, but we may be introduced you to understanding what education is about, what government is about, what is a civil servant, what is expected of you as a civil servant when you execute your duties. We felt that it is still important that we subject you to this program even though it may sound too late to some, as part of your training and development. If you are not compatible with the term induction, take this to be your training and development opportunity. Because some of you may have to argue English to say induction, I understand well, so it does not apply to me. But training and development apply even to me and to all of us. This seminar will serve to familiarize you with the priorities of our government, as I've said, and those of the Department of Education as a sector, particularly this current sixth administration, which commenced in May 2019 and is due to end in May 2024. As I've said earlier, we talk of the sixth administration, which means that we have gone to elections under a democratic dispensation for the sixth time. When did we start electing democratically in South Africa? It was 1994. And who was the first president? It was Tata Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela, 1994. Now, that was the first administration. The second administration, because Tata Madiba was old, he could not stay beyond 5 years. He left office and there was a second president elected. Who was the president? President Thabo Mbeki. He became president for 2 terms. In other words, when you talk of the second administration, the president there was President Mbeki. When you talk of the third administration, the president there was President Mbeki. You see that? Then the fourth administration, there were other presidents that came for a short period. But when we elected for the fourth term of administration, the president that we elected is President Zuma. He served his 2 terms of office. Don't worry about this interruption that happened. But in other words, the 4th and the 5th administration, the president was President Zuma. The interruption is when there was President Kgalema Motlanthe, who was the president for a short period, after President Zuma, or after President Mbeki. And there was also another president who acted for a short term, was Baleka Mbete. There is also, the other one was deputy. So those were the president. But when I talk of the term of administration, the 6th administration, is when President Cyril Ramaphosa started and came in as president. He also came before the term of President Zuma, 5th administration, but he started his full term in 2019 and he started the 6th administration. Why does it become important for you as a salary level 7 and 8 employed by the department? You will have to know that from 1994, government has certain priorities. When you go to elections, you elect government because there are things that as the public, as the voters want to see government doing for us. When you go to elections, you'll see next year, around from March, the parties, political parties will issue what they call their political manifestos. Where they will say and go and say, this is what you have set us to achieve. This is how far have we gone. We have gone to achieve those. And if you elect us, that is their manifesto. These are things that will do for you as the nation, as the voters. That is contained in the document, in what is called the manifesto. Now they will then be elected. If they got a popular vote, then they are elected to form the government. Once government is formed, the president will be the first appointed, the president will then appoint the deputy president, and the president will then appoint the cabinet, which are ministers. The same applies councils in the province. There will be premier appointed by the president. Then the premier will appoint, although it's appointed in the province by the legislature, but there will be premier, then there will be MECs, members of the executive council. What is important, once they are there in place, they must go to a planning session. And they are now in power. They go to plan. During that is normally called the Mahoshas, ne? They go to a cabinet lehotla. That is a planning session. When they plan there, they must then, when they are seated, they say these are things we want to achieve for the people that have put us in power. And these are things that will achieve over a 5-year period. And those things, we call them priorities of government. They are contained in a book, in a document, that we call it the Medium-Term Strategic Framework, MTSF. You get me? They have a document now that contains the priorities of the government. We call that document Medium-Term Strategic Framework. In other words, medium-term is for a 5-year period. We want to achieve these things over a 5-year period. Now, we want to then familiarize you with those priorities of our government. Now, for the sixth administration, now I'll zoom in specifically to those priorities that government has said they want to achieve during this term of office. One, they want to have to see a capable, ethical, and developmental state. Capable, ethical, and developmental state. The words, the key words there. Capable. 2, ethical. Issue of ethics. They come in there. They also want to achieve, as their second priority, economic transformation and job creation. Whether they've achieved that or not, they will come with their manifesto sometime next day and said, we'll see economic we'll transform the economy and we'll create jobs. And then when we go to vote, then we'll be answering, practitioners employed, should they create jobs? Ne? But others would say, no, but we did not get employment, so government did not achieve. That is the second priority. The third priority, education, skills, and health. They want to improve the quality of health. Currently, we have heard our ministers of health talking about the National Health Insurance, NHR. Agiti ya inenies, ezo implement. Quality education, it also is a project, comes in that context. We also want to see want to consolidate the social wage through reliable and quality basic services. The services that we receive must be reliable. We must at least be able to expect that by this time, this is the service I will get from government. Spatial integration and local government. Want to improve the way people are being settled, human settlements. We also want to see a better local government. We want to see councillors who are there in our localities being able to deliver the services that we require. The next priority, social cohesion and safer communities. Are we able to tolerate one another? Are we able to live with one another as South Africans? Whether we're Indian, colored, white, or African, black, are we cohesive? The next one is the better Africa and the better world. Why does it become important to have a better Africa and a better world? If there is no better Africa, you will have people migrating from their countries, immigration coming to South Africa, from Zimbabwe, from all other parts of the world. because in their countries there is instability, there are wars, there are infightings. So they run to South Africa. Then we feel they come to take our jobs and all that. The main problem is that there is no stability in their own countries. So we need to have a better Africa, so that we don't have problems from those countries that come to us as South Africa. We also want to see a better world. Currently we know there's a war in Russia and Ukraine. And that affects us. That is why some of you were asking, why is the president not sitting and dealing with our problems, go to Russia? Where there are problems in Russia, there's a problem of oil. Then the price of diesel or petrol goes up. So it becomes important also to have a better world, so that these problems that are there, they don't come to affect us. Now, in respect to education, I'll now talk specifically to education. What is it? I've talked about the priorities that government wants to achieve, a better Africa and a better world. In terms of education, if you are seated in your office as an admin officer, as a personal assistant, or any other level, whether you have a chief works inspector, I don't know what are their levels, if you are at that level, you are seated in your office, keep in mind that you are working for a department. Which department? Education. You must know then, what is it that my employer, my department seeks to achieve, especially during the current term. NDP, which is the National Development Plan, I think you have heard about NDP. It's a National Development Plan. We call it a Vision 2030, because are the aspirations of what we want to achieve as government, as a nation by 2030. This is called NDP. Now, in that document, the NDP, it says for education, by 2030, South Africans should have access to education and training of the highest quality that would lead to significantly improved learning outcomes. That is NDP. By 2030, South Africans must have access to education and training of the highest quality, which will result to significantly improved learning outcomes. That is NDP. It further says, by 2030, the performance of South African learners in international standardized benchmark tests should be comparable to the performance of learners in countries at similar levels of development with similar levels of access. In other words, when our learners write an assessment test and the same test is written by learners in Tanzania, in America, in UK, in Russia, our learners should be able to compete with those learners. If it's about reading, what a learner in America is able to read, the pace of learning, a learner in South Africa must be able to read in the same way. Recently there was a study. There are different types of these international standardized benchmark tests that are conducted. One is called PEARLS, Progress in International Reading and Literacy Study. One is called TIMS. There's SACMEC, and there's also TALI study. In respect to PEARLS, Progress in International Reading and Literacy Study, it revealed that our learners who are aged 10, doing grade 4, they can read, but they can't read with meaning and understanding. And the study, the recent one in terms of 2021, it says 81% of our learners in South Africa, they can read, but they can't read with meaning and understanding. Which studies that is PEARLS. That is an international standardized benchmark assessment test. That is the revelation from the study. That it says in the training of our teachers, because those are people that are responsible for educating learners, They must train them such that learners are able to read with meaning and understanding. At home, my last born is 17 now. When she was doing grade 11, I was excited, once I saw a little bird come, hop. So I cried, little bird, will you stop. I was going to the window to say, how? And it shook a little tail, and I was just to you know, when we were young, Mrs. Shomani, Mrs. No, those were things we were learning in schools. In Afrikaans, because they're different Afrikaans, we would say, "Wat doen de man?" The man has here to woord gekomen. Oh, the man comes to who? The man comes to who? And then was we kubega now. The woord wordt hier the man gekomen. Ja, mensen tegen. Vaag, excellent your grade. They want a little thing. When they want here in London, when they understand what's the meaning, you will say it to that is still a problem with our learners. They do these things, they don't have understanding, they can't comprehend what they are learning. So this is a problem. Now, Tinaga's education, our pathway education, our duty is to ensure that when we recruit teachers, when we train teachers, they are able to teach learners so that they can be able to read with understanding and meaning. You get the point? Some of you are in HR, they process appointments. When you process an appointment, you must then ask yourself, is the person that I'm capturing on person going to assist the department to overcome this problem? So you see your role, because you are dealing with appointments. Now, I'll just move and leave this and go straight to these projects. Project what to improve the foundational skills of numeracy and literacy among the youth at an early stage of schooling. Literacy and numeracy I've already referred to, ability to read, ability to count and all that. We want to ramp up ECD, early childhood development, through migrating responsibility for ECD. In the past, ECD was responsibility for social development. It has been migrated, now it is the responsibility of basic education. We also want to see an urgent implementation of the curriculum with the skills and competencies for a changing world, just such as coding and robotics, 3-stream curriculum model, which has technical, vocational, and academic stream. We want to also decolonize curriculum. The curriculum in the past was colonized. We are going to learn what doing the man. What doing the man. Usually, I get one in another KwaZulu-Natal and where Zabani baby. The what doing the man, what about Mrs. Namas Mrs. Go Mrs. so meal, an innocent Mrs. Futu Westma, Mrs. Pella Westma. Now, Mele, poor one, Skepsa, and has quality job. Mele, they are no good to cap the road. Indo, them yami to look in Peline, is cap the road. And what is being internalized? The duty of a black man is to cap the road. And capping for who? For Mrs. That is decolonizing the curriculum. That is colonizing the curriculum. So we want to change now in the way we teach so that we all know, don't learn those things that are keeping us to believe that umuntu yoma abe innocent abuke asetshenzelwe indoda ejulukile umuntu omlungu umuntu omnyama osebenza ajuluka abathwatha benje yabona. That is a colonization of the mind. We want to decolonize the curriculum so that we decolonize the mind. Now, we also want to promote entrepreneurship. We don't want to produce learners, youngsters in schools who always think about being employed, but we want people that will be able to create jobs themselves. Ayazi ukuthi degree yakhe ayiqede, kodwa because akanayo mentality yokuqala his own innovative aqala business, uyofana i-degree yakhe. So we want to promote through education these skills, entrepreneurship skills. We want to strengthen the quality of education through the introduction of standardized assessments. I've already mentioned that. We want to build an integrated and collaborative system of infrastructure development characterized by regular delivery and maintenance. If we work under infrastructure, for example, infrastructure is a mechanism for teaching and learning, are the tools that we use for teaching and learning. We don't just build the walls for the sake of the walls, but we build these walls, brick and mortar, in order to enhance teaching and learning. Because it's education, so in role why infrastructure contextualize. It should assist, one, the shelter where teaching takes place, but the infrastructure that we install in those walls must assist teaching and learning. Where is Mr. Mahlan? We will remember, Mr. Mahlan, in 2020, during COVID, schools were closed, and in March. After a month, we realized, no, it's tough. We can't have our learners not learning for months. Then the decision was that, no, then we got proposals from SABC, other organizations saying, no, we'll assist you. We'll introduce radio lessons. So we did. We asked Mr. Mahlambi to go and negotiate with the SABC and other stations. I also remember when the Coastlands were discussing with them with how they assist us to have radio lessons, online lessons, and all that. Within a month, I think in April, the bill we got was 18 million. You see, the bill just for radio lessons, a month was 18 million. We realized, no, we can't go, we didn't budget for this. Then what it means, if we have infrastructure that is collaborative, we then introduced what we call smart schools, where we started to install smart boards. We installed this gadget that we are using as I'm talking, that is able, the projectors in schools. You know, collaborative, ne? Now what happens? Now the other challenge when we were planning to reopen schools in August, because we realized it's not going to work, we're not going to succeed to keep schools closed. We must reopen. The issues that COVID was still rife, people were dying. And when we contact each other, we interact, we contaminate it and all that. So we felt, no, let's introduce smart schools. Install this equipment, wide interactive boards, projectors, and all that. Because the other demand in preparation for opening schools, labor came with demands that no, we must have social distancing. We must have a small classroom with 20 learners. And in the small classroom, there must be space, desk, a meter distance. Remember those things. Between the learners, they must not sit to each other. Then labor union started to say, no, we need about 40,000 new teachers. Where is the budget going to come from? So there was no budget to employ more teachers. So we introduced smart classrooms, and we will say one teacher in a school with 200 learners doing maths in grade 12 will teach in one classroom, but learners will be seated in different classrooms. Classroom with projectors and all that. When the teacher teaches in this class, learners in other classes are able to participate in a classroom, same classroom. Remember, we see the issue of collaborative infrastructure. that is integrated to teaching and learning. Whatever gadget you are given, keep in mind that it is expected of you to use those tools of trade to serve the interest of the public. When you find yourself tempted to phone Cape Town 5 times, and at times a parent calls for assistance, you tell her or him, hold on, I'm still busy. Can't you see that I'm busy? Because some of you are even very rude to them when they come to the office. I told you, you must wait, I'm still busy. We are phoning Cape Town. Know that that tool of trade is intended to serve the interests of the public. Because I know we can be very rude. I know we are doing a very good job. But there are instances where I've come across very rude public servants. Very rude ones. So it is expected of you to serve the interests of the state, of the public, even if you don't want to serve the interests of the state, but the interests of the public, it's your responsibility to do so. Public servants form part of the public administration and should therefore be guided by the following values and principles that I will be able to outline in the execution of your duties. And these values and principles are in section 195 of the Constitution. They are called values and principles that govern public administration. Where are these values? Section 195 of the Constitution. What is 195 about? Values and principles that govern public administration. All right. Now, these values, I'll take you slowly, value by value. It requires a high standard of professional ethics, which you must promote and maintain. 2, it requires an efficient, economic, and effective use of resources. It says public administration must be development-oriented. Service must be provided impartially. In other words, you don't do it because it's your relative. No? You don't do it because a person is known to you. You serve the public interest. It must be performed efficiently, economically, and also it requires an effective use of resources. Public administration must be development-oriented, and I've already said equally, equitably, and without bias. People's needs must be responded to. Not your personal needs, but the needs of the public, the needs of the people. So ngithenga ukuthi thatha ifoni ukuthi fonela ngibuze, am I serving the public interest with this phone that I'm using? When you take the state car and start to go and do your own things, ask yourself a question: is what I'm doing serving the public interest? I was listening to a program yesterday, where umphakathi complaina ngamaphoyisa ukuthi imoto bahamba ngazi bothenga amagrosa. Balandi ihlobo zabo mabezocomplaina zomphakathi about the problems of crime, they say cars are not available. Is that serving the public interest? Now, once you get tempted to use the state car, question, what public interest is being served by? In fact, there was a former MEC, Michelle Haden, or Baba also Ashon, the hotel Haden. Kwa mise dolope at wo. Yiple madama yapi tsaniki. Ayikho into ebuhlungu you professional now we bekubona abantu ngale monto sekuthiwa sector here. That's very painful, ne? Uma isola lithi ayisebenzi umsebenzi stop it and ask for the keys. So I'm saying, colleagues, one of the reasons why we felt of, even though it may sound so late, we need to talk about these things so to understand what are the values and principles that govern public administration. The public comes first, you come second, if not third. And people's needs, I've said, must be responded to, and the public must be encouraged to participate in decision making or policy making. Public administration must be accountable. Are you able to account for what you do? Mauzo the temptation it and feel it himself and yes today we're going to get today. And I would be surprised to call yourself a lot is a diagonal fish by waiting in accountability, colleagues. Transparency must be fostered by providing the public with timely, accessible, and accurate information. I want to emphasize timely. If there is a query from the public, how much time do you take to respond to that query? We can be police inquire from the public, we are reporting. For the most of those, we are arrogant. So that is good human resource management and career development practices to maximize human potential must be cultivated. Hence, our duty is also to capacitate you, to train you and develop you. Public administration must be broadly representative of the South African people with employment and personal management practices based on ability, objectivity, fairness, and the need to redress the imbalances of the past to achieve broad representation. I would want to take a moment and reflect on this. We are referring to a public administration that is broadly representative. In other words, ungathi abantu beningi abakwi education abantu aba-females kodwa administration kuba amadoda nje. Abaphathi kuba amadoda. Mase kuma-position of promotion kuyashintsha. Sibaningi aba-females ama-employees but mase kuba abaphathi sekungamadoda. Is that broadly representative? No longer broadly representative. So that's one thing that we need to deal with. So I'll reflect on this by looking at the department, how we are. As part of promoting professional ethics and conduct, we've established the ethics committee as a department. The public administration must be ethical. We must check now a lifestyle audit. Let's start at level 8 on a Q7, on a X7, on a Muslim shop, no munye epalito. Kanti yena kwenzakala ngayo. Ngiyayenza ukuthiwa abazali bamshiye. Bazwanezatha bo. Okay. So, the ethics committee says a little bit of lifestyle audit. Just check your lifestyle. What people are going to So, ethics committee also looks at what is called financial disclosures. Mrs. Longana does that. So kufanele disclose ukuthi sinamalini. Yes, sithole kanjani. How much I It's not only who the money in Tolega. Why never properties and Gaga well? What Tolega, Totinaga would declare those. The requirement which all of us must disclose. Mong and I good luck, that's then we are fine, but we still declare with Anina. Yang is the trail back in the last time. But until I'm out to withdraw, you keep around 80,000. You basically can't come in the take his mouth. So we're not doing Well, I'm trying to say, colleagues, issue of ethics professional, because the corruption also comes there. The corruption comes there. We normally hear Uti MFP that will highlight cases. We recently, about 2 months ago, Mr. July, we got this person that reported with, hey, I think I big in our MSc. The teller principal law or tattoo 15,000. I started saying we sell 5,000. Go buzo one 15,000 okulumanga. One tembisa ukuthi ngoba ngiqualified tisho ngasebenzi uzomqasha esikoleni. Kodwa kuze ngithola iposa ngibhadala 15,000. And I paid. Sengibathe ngiyafuna iyabale. Sengicela nje ayibhadala ngama 5,000. We participate in corruption. But it was again a public servant. Law or public servant or cause a position. I can assure you, Makolo, that person is suspended.
That's correct.
For being unethical in behavior. 15,000 is losing his job. Okay? And as we were also once tempted when we received a person who wants to, hey, there's a new one that I've heard about. That is school nutrition. Kutiwa I is telling our later my apple and my fruit this week, is telling stable cash. It's a worst form of corruption. When I sniggers my apple and stable cash, school nutrition, no push away that. So I told you, aim look fruit for them to have nutritious food. Ne? But umuntu nje oyi professional oholayo azaqoke no time njengani. Uthatha ukudla kwengane ufuna cash kuma service providers. Ngizwa kuthiwa kwezinye uze wathi no hayi njengoba nje i-enrollment increasile ngicela singshare i-difference. Ushuthi uma ngabe ingane bese 1,500 says 1,600 athi ke uzoclaima for ingane is 1,600 but 1,000 different ka 100 ngicela siyishare. That's corruption. How many were tempted then for a person who's claiming his pension? Because people are very clever. They won't say openly, no, what they do, they just keep your documents. I told the pension, they said, to I will born now. Now, born a shoot Badarus and processing those. That is corruption. There are 2 other colleagues. Issue of professional ethics, values and principles governing public administration. So those are things, colleagues, that if we were to uphold those values, we'll have a better public administration and a better public service. Now, let me reflect on the department in terms of senior management. In the department currently, we have 73 positions from director and head of department. Of these positions, There's one head of department position, and the person who's appointed to fill that post is one, because there's one position, and the person, the gender is male. Females, there's none, because there's one post, I mean. And vacant post, there's no vacant post because the post is filled. Come to DDG's us. There are 4 posts of DDGs in the department. All the 4 are filled. 3 are filled by males. And 1 is a female. In fact, it's an appointment there by to run. Otherwise, look for long and sharp. Comes to chief directors, at least it's better there. But in fact, we only achieved it now. Ms. Kasha or Mrs. Tongwan and others. We have 14 posts of chief directors. Filled are 12. 5 are filled by males and 7 are females. So, as a child is at least it's better there. And there are only 2 vacancies at that level. But at least it's better there. Come to directors. There are 54 posts of directors. I think yeah, is that corrected now? Yeah, 43 are filled. We can then calculate how many are vacant. 27 are filled by males. 16 only are females. How many vacancies are there? 11. So that is the total, which means that currently, to deal with that principle in the Section 195 principle, we have 63% posts filled by males at senior management level, and only 37 filled by females. If we were to reach 50-50, that is what we must address. Ne? That also counts for other levels. Other levels would be micromanagement, which is Deputy Director and Chief Education Specialist, followed by Second Managers, DCS Assistant Directors, followed by salary level 7s and 8s. When we look there, I didn't put that picture. But what I'm sure of in terms of statistics, about 60% of employees of the department are females or more. But when it starts to schools, departmental heads is fine, still females, but it comes to more positions, deputy principals.
We are fine now. The only challenge is there is
deputies and principals. It's principals in their men. So for us to have 50-50, we need to appoint on this round of promotions for principals, 297 should be females. Issues of equity, it's Section 195 principle. Ne? So that is the situation, colleagues. We thought, let me just zoom in into this level. I didn't want to go to other levels. We are governed by laws, colleagues. Miss Hazel Francis and other colleagues will take us through the laws that govern the department. But I just want to reflect on Section 33 of the Constitution also. That clause is called just administrative clause. It says administration must be done or performed lawfully, reasonably, and procedurally fair. It further says any administrative action that negatively or adversely affects the right of a person must be communicated in writing. She will cover that in her presentation, but it's very important linking that because we talk about a just public service. Thank you very much, colleagues.